big week in their failing jab program. Details to be announced on Thursday. Now, they've already announced mass vaccination hubs. So far, one in Sydney, but that'll be more. And there's 3 in Melbourne already, but I reckon that'll ramp up as well. But an indication as to the Thursday announcement, as Scott Morrison says, proposes a 12-week sprint to give COVID-19 vaccine to younger Australians. And they're making out like this is a new problem, that people have lost confidence. It's not that they've lost confidence, it's just that they don't see a need for this thing. And elderly people aren't turning up or cancelling their appointments, so they're going after the younger people now. And when you combine that they're opening up hubs in combination with going with younger people who are more likely to be in the workplace, based on what's happened elsewhere overseas, you can see that the workplace is going to become a pressure point on young people of intimidation and coercion to go and get this jab. And you can bet these hubs are going to be located close to either transport hubs, industrial sites, or commercial centres where a lot of young people work. Because it's a healthy young people who are the real targets of these maniacs, injecting gene-modifying concoction into them. So if this worked overseas, and of course they're going to try this nonsense here, so it's certainly possible the government's going to offer some kind of rebate to employers who allow their employees time off work to go and get the jab. Along with free public transport, they might even offer Uber rides to these vaccination hubs. I will correct it and just say they mention in this article 50 or over, so they mean younger than the elderly right now, but still people in work, but ultimately they will be going after the young people. Now, all of these puppets here, given the job of jabbing everyone by the maniacs overseas, they've got to get the job done before the end of the year. I mean, when you think about it, for all of the media hype and the panic that they're behind and all that, we're only at April. They've got plenty of time to implement all. They're making it like they haven't, but they really do, to implement all of this coercion through the workplace. But ultimately where it's going to land, and they've appointed that Navy Commodore with the rank required to issue orders for people to perform emergency action plans and actions, which could include, given the jab, with protection from criminal and civil liability for the people that are doing it in good faith. They're preparing. They've done all that. And it's all in preparation for the winter season shitstorm of lockdowns that we know is coming. And for those that don't fall for this workplace coercion strategy that I think is coming, they're going to send people around. And I actually think it's going to get to a point where they're going to be locking everyone down, street by street, house by house. They're going to have troops everywhere. And then at the exact same time, you watch, there's going to be a hacker that hacks the internet, and the whole of Telstra and all those providers are all going to go down. And all you're going to be locked inside your house, and you're going to have Pete Overton and all those other newsreaders just giving you total bullshit. And these guys are going to go house to house, and people won't be able to communicate how bad it is and what is actually happening. I reckon that they will go to that level because they've been murmuring about hackers and the dangers to the internet for the last couple of months now. You know, this sounds very extreme, but it might be worth, these are worth $60 from JCar, just getting some two-way radios and just set a channel for people local that you know, so at least you can keep in touch during these lockdowns and closing down of the internet, because I can see that happening. And at least that way you've got some information as to what's going on around you. You can even get a more powerful one, like the old days of the 70s with the CB radio boom. Go back to that, because towards the end of the year, this calm before the storm we've got now isn't going to be here. And the more pushback we do before, well, if it gets to that point, the better. This is a crucial part of the decided not consent form that I'm putting together along with all the evidence. I'm glad it hasn't gone out yet, because we're now getting so much more information as to what their strategies are, as well as the accumulation of the evidence that we don't need this thing. But here's where I'm at now with it. So taking into account what their strategies appear to be at this point in time. So the first one is, I do not give consent to receiving a written invitation from. Now that's just from your local medical practice. They send out an email or something like that, because the situation is for us is that we don't just want to. It's not like we've accepted that there's a virus, but we don't think that their vaccine is a correct strategy. It's that we're right back at the point where we just know that this virus is not even a threat, and there's no medical treatments required at all. So this is what this does by going back to this, right back to that point, that you're not even accepting an invitation. Now, the second one is to do with, I think, what they're going to do to young people in the workforce is an approach to me by government authorised officers or anyone else under direction, control, coercion, or influence government as at a place, including my place of work, residence, public space, with the intention of offering a COVID medicines to be administered to myself, because when they offer you time off, that's what they're doing. They're offering you time off, admittedly it's through the government, but it's coming through your employer. Now, the government does have a lot of coercive control that they use, particularly on human resources through the Workplace Gender Equality Agency. If people don't toe the line on who the government wants them to employ, their demographics, then they won't get government contracts, that sort of thing. So I don't think it's going to get to that, but they will expect the employers to hold up their end of the bargain. So what you do is you show that you have told the government that you don't consent to them off making that offer, and that way your employer satisfies their role as far as like saying to you, yeah, I'm offering it to you, and you've said, well, I'm not accepting that offer, and they just go back to the government with that. So that's what that's about. Now, number 3 is just where they offer you a consent form. Like, you could be up at the doctor's getting your arthritis looked at. Suddenly they go, oh, here you go. Might get the jab. Here's a consent form for it. Well, you don't even want to get that consent form. And of course, number 4, the last one, you don't want to be administered by anybody. And I've mentioned under the vaccination policy or legislation, in particular, the Defence Act, referring to the option that they think that they've got, that they can send people around to act in good faith under orders and not be able to be criminally prosecuted or civilly prosecuted for either the physical force or any effects of the jab, which is what I think I mentioned that in a video quite a while ago. I got a good response to that one. I think people can see that that's certainly a possibility, and we're just letting them know in advance that we don't consent. What you're actually saying is you don't even consent to that legislation under the Defence Act to be even there. You're withdrawing your implied consent for that to be used, because, as I mentioned before, that any legislation, if it's not being used, it's just words on a piece of paper. It's only a proposed contract. It doesn't become a contract until they go to use it. And if it's civil, they need 2 parties to enter into the contract. And we're just letting them know we're not entering into the contract right from the get-go. So again, no, it's going to come down to, hopefully not, but if it does become an apocalyptic situation, which some places around the world, in civilized countries, some streets, they're practicing locking down streets now. And I think that they might be in preparation for this. It's unpleasant to think about, but if they've got this jab and it's going to cause damage, and they need to jab it into people before that damage becomes evident, say within a year or two's time, because it's there for nefarious purposes. It's not there for a non-existent virus. We all know that this thing is going to cause people damage long term. All of these short-term effects, and they've said they haven't tested it for long-term effects. Oh, we didn't know that was going to happen to you. That women couldn't have viable kids, or whatever. Parkinson's disease seems to be another one that might be a danger. Anyway, that's where I'm at, taking into account the strategies that I can see that they may try. If people can see anything other stuff they might try that should be included in this I do not consent sort of most important part, what you're not consenting to, then yeah, please let us know in the comments. All right, that's it for this one.